This whole sordid affair has ripped the mask off the Trudeau government.
Tonight, Jody Wilson-Raybould resigns from cabinet after allegations Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's office tried to influence her decisions while she was Attorney General. And what was to be an announcement by Prime Minister Trudeau on Winnipeg Transit has now turned into a press conference to answer questions swirling around the scandal. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Jody Wilson-Raybould is now a casualty of a scandal that has engulfed the Liberal Party for less than a week now. The current Veteran Affairs Minister and former Attorney General tendered her resignation from Cabinet today. It all follows a report that the Prime Minister's office pressured her to intervene on a criminal prosecution involving SNC-Lavalin when she was still Minister of Justice. As APTN's Todd Lamoran reports, it all started off with high hopes 3.5 years ago.
It was all smiles and hugs when Jody Wilson-Raybould was made Justice Minister back in November 2015. But today was a different story, as Wilson-Raybould sent out a statement on social media, resigning from Cabinet. She writes, "With a heavy heart, I am writing to tender my resignation as the Minister of Veteran Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence." She also said in her letter of resignation that she was elected to implement a positive and progressive vision of change on behalf of all Canadians, and a different way of doing politics. She had been a prime force behind the government's efforts at reconciliation. But with her resignation, Union of BC Indian Chiefs Grand Chief, Stuart Phillip, calls reconciliation a sham.
This whole sordid affair has ripped the mask off the Trudeau government and the absolute hypocrisy behind the lofty public rhetoric about the importance of the relationship with Indigenous peoples.
Chief Phillip is also frustrated to see Wilson-Raybould disrespected so badly.
It's just been absolutely outrageous to see one of our most highly respected leaders treated in such a shabby way.
Conservative leader Andrew Scheer called the resignation a symptom of a larger cover-up.
For days now, he is asking us to take his word that nothing has happened, and now we clearly see by these actions that there's a different versions of events. He should have been forthcoming immediately. He should have waived his attorney, whatever privilege he thinks he has. The only conclusion we can draw from this is that there is more to the story, that someone is not being fully transparent and fully truthful.
Scheer wants an investigation to be done by the House's Standing Committee on Justice. There's an emergency meeting scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. But the Liberals hold a majority, and they can vote down any investigation.
So I repeat my call today for the Liberal members on committee to do the right thing, to ensure that Canadians can have answers on this growing scandal immediately and in full view of the public.
Wilson-Raybould is currently consulting legal advice on whether or not she'll break her silence. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Joining us now is APTN News host and producer Rick Harp. The Prime Minister will be speaking shortly at an announcement at a transit operation in Winnipeg, and we'll go live to that when that happens. Rick, it was supposed to be a transit announcement. As you've seen probably in the photos, there's a lot of media there. Are you expecting many questions on that transit announcement now?
Well, as someone who takes the bus a lot, I kind of hope so. I'd like to know if the system's going to improve a bit, but no, I don't think we're going to see many questions about that. What's going to dominate is what's been dominating the news cycle for the past couple of weeks, namely what's going on between Justin Trudeau and his former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould. As we heard
Grand Chief Stuart Phillip there talking about, how there were high hopes, this Indigenous woman was promoted to, and we see that it's getting started there now with Mayor Brian Bowman speaking and the Prime Minister behind him. But speaking about the high hopes when she was first appointed in this position as Attorney General, were those pretty high hopes back then, 3 years?
Oh, I remember there being incredibly high hopes. I think that in some ways she was symbolic of what was supposed to be this huge push away from the cynical, tight-fisted conservative agenda as under the reign of Stephen Harper. She was the highest, this was the highest that anyone in a Canadian government that an Indigenous person had risen to. So I think the feeling was that in a sense she kind of embodied that. And I mean, we can talk about the various initiatives that were undertaken by the Liberals, the framework on Indigenous rights, which came under a lot of fire. And so, you know, I think a lot of this is spin, a lot of this is optics, and I think it's very important. I mean, symbolism does matter, but at the same time, substance matters much more. And I think we're starting to see, with months away from an election, a lot of tension between the two.
Grand Chief Stuart Phillip has been pretty harsh with his criticism since she was taken out of her position there and put in as a Minister of Veteran Affairs, saying that there were ripped the mask off of the Trudeau government and that this is showing reconciliation is a sham. Is this, I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago when she was first demoted, and he said that this is, don't expect many Indigenous votes for the Liberal Party in BC in the next election. Do you think that this has hurt the Liberals' chances?
You know, this is something I've been hearing a lot of people wonder aloud about. Some people are saying Indigenous people came out in greater numbers to vote because they saw the Trudeau Liberals as a different regime, as a new way of doing government, sunny ways, as he so famously, or by now infamously said. And I think that I'm now hearing people say, well, they don't want to vote for the Conservatives. They're not sure if they should vote for the NDP, so maybe they'll just stay home. So remains to be seen what's going to happen.
And I guess we will see what's going to happen here, Rick. We'll probably have you back here in a bit. We're going to go to that news conference as soon as the Prime Minister starts taking questions. And, of course, we always want to hear what you think. And if you want to continue the conversation, here's how. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous headlines. A prominent figure in the fight against pipelines on Wet'suwet'en territories has taken her battle to Vancouver. Molly Whitcomb spoke to a packed audience in downtown Vancouver. She was one of the 14 people arrested by RCMP at the Gedimtung checkpoint on January 7th. Wickham spoke about the importance of upholding Wet'suwet'en laws and jurisdiction on their traditional territories. She also chimed in on the attempt of a new reconciliation process the BC government announced last week.
This is not a new process of reconciliation. The Wet'suwet'en are not negotiating a reconciliation agreement. What's happening is that there's a continued dialogue with the province about how to implement Wet'suwet'en rights and title, and I think it's very strategic that the province is showcasing this at this time to make it appear as though there will be some reconciliation for what happened on January 7th and the continued invasion and occupation of Wet'suwet'en territories.
2 Northern Ontario First Nations will soon have potentially life-saving devices, mobile baby warmers. Sandy Lake and Pikangikum First Nations will be receiving the warmers courtesy of a Health Canada contract. Expectant mothers from the Sandy Lake Pikangikum region are usually flown south to give birth, but sometimes they can't make it in time. So the portable beds can prevent a baby's temperature from dropping too quickly if born in the local nursing station. Mississauga medical supplier Dreger Medical Canada was awarded the contract. Well, we're going to step aside for a quick break, but stick around. We'll take you to that press conference with the Prime Minister as soon as it begins. Here's a look at Wednesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. +2 with snow for Halifax, -7 in St. John's. 15 below for Nain and Cartwright with sunny skies. -2 and a rain-snow mix for Montreal. -12 for Chibougamau. -3 in Sarnia, London, and Peterborough. -5 under sunny skies for Thunder Bay. 11 below for Wawa and Sioux Lookout. 21 below in Churchill, minus 19 in Puckatawagan, minus 15 for Winnipeg and Gimli with snow, 18 below in snow in Dauphin, minus 20 under sunny skies for Saskatoon and North Battleford, 19 below in Yorkton, minus 18 in Buffalo Narrows and Uranium City. Welcome back. We're waiting to go live to a press conference with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Winnipeg. We'll take you there as soon as it starts, as he's set to discuss the resignation today of Jody Wilson-Raybould. And joining us now as we wait is Rick Harp, host producer with APTN National News. And Rick, people have been waiting on this all day. This press conference has been pushed back once already. Do you think the Prime Minister is going to say much here?
I mean, I guess compared to what he's said to date, which is not much, people have accused him of being very sort of legalese, if you will, very tight parameters, saying I did not direct the then Attorney General under any circumstance to intervene in this case. We'll see how, kind of loosey-goosey he is here, or if he'll stick to a very tight script that has been lawyered to the nines.
The only ones not sticking, I guess, to a tight script are all these people who are named in all these stories. Nobody has put their name to it.
Even government sources?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Even the original story doesn't have anybody coming out and attaching their name to it. These stories on the weekend, the Union of BC Indians Chiefs has talked about how they were calling a story on the weekend discriminatory and sexist. Are you hoping that maybe the Prime Minister will answer to some of those, the comments that were made by Liberal insiders and Liberal MPs in the story on the weekend?
I suspect he won't speak to that directly. Since they were unnamed, he'll perhaps say he has no idea who might make such a comment. But, again, politics is a blood sport. We have to expect these kinds of things. I think really it's a battle to control the narrative, to control how this is framed. And, as I think UBCIC correctly pointed to, it's become all about damage control in a lot of ways. This story has gotten out from under the control, if you will, of the Liberals, and now I think they're just trying to essentially save as much face as possible and get out of this reasonably intact. It remains to be seen what the opposition can do with this. We do know that the leader of the... but I understand we're to cut to the PM.
Yeah, we're going to go to the Prime Minister now, who's speaking in Winnipeg.
By her decision to step down. And let me tell you why. This resignation is not consistent with conversations I had with Jody a few weeks ago when I asked her to serve as Canada's Minister for Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence, nor is it consistent with the conversations we've had lately. In regards to the matter of SNC-Lavalin, let me be direct. The Government of Canada did its job, and to the clear public standards expected of it. If anyone felt differently, they had an obligation to raise that with me. No one, including Jody, did that. This morning, I convened a cabinet meeting to inform my colleagues of Jody's departure. Minister Sajjan has immediately taken over Jody's responsibilities as Acting Minister of Veterans Affairs. We are as committed as ever to ensuring that Canada's veterans receive the care and support of a grateful nation. I know that Minister Sajjan will serve our women and men in uniform and our veterans with dedication. Our government's commitment to reconciliation is larger than any one person, and we will continue to work closely with Indigenous partners as we walk this path together. And make no mistake, we will remain squarely focused on middle-class Canadians, creating jobs, growing the economy, and delivering more opportunities for hard-working families from coast to coast to coast. Hier soir, j'ai accepté la démission de Jody Wilson-Raybould du Conseil des ministres. Honnêtement, sa décision m'a surpris et m'a déçu. Et laissez-moi vous expliquer pourquoi. Cette démission est incompatible avec les conversations que j'ai eues avec Jody il y a quelques semaines lorsque je lui ai demandé de servir à titre de ministre des Anciens combattants et ministre associé de la Défense nationale. Tout comme elle est incompatible avec les conversations que nous avons eues ensemble au cours des derniers jours. Je veux aborder directement les questions entourant SNC-Lavalin. Notre gouvernement a fait son travail en respectant toutes les normes établies. Si quelqu'un pense le contraire, il avait la responsabilité de soulever la question avec moi. Personne ne l'a fait, incluant Jody. Ce matin, j'ai convoqué le Conseil des ministres pour informer mes collègues du départ de Jody. Le ministre Sajjan assume immédiatement ses responsabilités à titre de ministre des Anciens combattants par intérim. Nous sommes plus déterminés que jamais à assurer que les anciens combattants profitent des soins et du soutien dignes d'un pays reconnaissant.
So there, Rick, what we're hearing, the government saying it did its job on SNC-Lavalin, and anybody that had questions on the way that was playing out could have spoken with him directly. Minister Raybould did not do that, saying that...
according to him.
According to him, yes. We'd love to hear from her if you're listening, Minister.
Well, apparently she lawyered up, so we'll find out maybe soon what she can and can't say.
The Prime Minister saying the commitment to reconciliation is larger than just one person. Do you think that that message is going to be received?
Well, again, as we spoke about earlier, I think she was presented and in some cases received as someone who is symbolic, given how highly she had risen up in the ranks of the Liberal government. No one had ever had that senior a post before, that is to say, Attorney General,
Jody
Minister of Justice.
Wilson-Raybould's presence in Cabinet spoke for itself, and then, of course, she quit. How can you explain to Canadians how it is you don't seem fully aware of what's happening within your own Cabinet?
As I said, I was surprised and disappointed by Jody's decision. This is not something that was consistent with the conversations we had around her decision to continue serving in this government as a cabinet minister, and they weren't consistent with the conversations we had over the past couple of days. As I said, this government always takes its responsibilities seriously, and we make sure we do our job and we do it properly. And if anyone felt that that was not the case, particularly the Attorney General, it was their responsibility, her responsibility, to let me know about that. Of course, she said nothing of that to me last fall.
Jody Wilson-Raybould was the only Indigenous person around the cabinet table. And now Indigenous leaders are questioning your commitment to reconciliation. So where are you get your directions now?
We have taken directions from Canadians, and particularly Indigenous Canadians, from the very beginning on the matter of reconciliation. Canadians from coast to coast to coast made a clear demand of the government in 2015 when they elected us with a commitment to move forward on reconciliation. And the reconciliation agenda is a whole-of-government approach. It is one that goes beyond any one minister and is one that we work on, all of us, extremely seriously and extremely carefully. We have made historic investments in transforming the frame with which Canada has engagements with Indigenous peoples, and we've also delivered tangibly and concretely on new schools, on new health systems, on ending boil water advisories, on moving forward in tangible ways that are creating economic opportunities for Indigenous peoples. We will continue to work very hard with a whole-of-government approach, because that's what Canadians expect.
Hello, Prime Minister. You're saying that Jody Wilson-Raybould's decision to leave Cabinet is inconsistent with the conversations you had with her in your office. Many people have been asking over the last couple of days, would you be willing to waive the privilege that she's citing for not coming forward and speaking? So are you willing to waive that privilege? Would you like to get a full airing of this before it goes any further?
Indeed, I've heard those calls and take them very seriously, and that's why I've asked our current Minister of Justice and Attorney General to make recommendations to me on the question of solicitor-client privilege. I will highlight, however, that there's a real danger that's been flagged for me of unintended consequences, particularly because there are 2 court cases ongoing directly related to this matter that could be impacted by such a decision we might make. And allow me to be also very clear when I say that our government did its job properly and according to all the rules. And if someone felt that we did not, someone within the government, a minister or particularly the Attorney General, then it was her responsibility to come directly to me and highlight that. And that is not an issue that involves attorney-client privilege. She, of course, should be coming to me and expressing that. And she did not.
Même question en français, s'il vous plaît.
Nous comprenons à quel point la question de privilège en est une importante. C'est pour ça que j'ai demandé à notre ministre de la Justice et procureur général de nous donner des recommandations, de me donner des recommandations là-dessus. Mais soulignons qu'il faut faire attention à des conséquences négatives ou inattendues de cette décision, particulièrement étant donné le fait qu'il y a 2 procès actuellement.
We've got to step aside for a quick commercial break, but stick around. Welcome back. We're going to take you back to the press conference the Prime Minister is holding right now, where during the break he said he was puzzled and doesn't entirely understand why Minister Raybould has stepped down. Here's the press conference as it continues.
Et je continue de rassurer les Canadiens que nous avons suivi toutes les règles, toutes les normes en place par rapport à l'indépendance judiciaire. Comme j'ai dit, si il y a une personne qui ne pense pas qu'on a suivi ces principes-là, c'était son obligation, particulièrement Mme Raybould, de m'en aviser, et elle n'a pas du tout fait ça.
Amber McGuckin, Global News. We learned that the Manitoba Premier was not invited to today's event. I'm just wondering why, and can you speak to the state of your relationship?
We have a very positive relationship with all orders of government right across the country. I've made a number of announcements of infrastructure that's going to have a positive impact on the people of Manitoba, with the Premier, with members of his government. This particular announcement is an investment in transit that we're doing in partnership with the City of Winnipeg, and I'm very, very pleased to be able to stand here with Mayor Bowman to highlight the great ongoing partnership we have between the federal government and the City of Winnipeg, but reassure everyone that we also have a very constructive and positive relationship with the province and indeed with all provinces.
Jill McIshon with CTV National News. I've been speaking with a number of chiefs today, and there was a statement by the National Chief as well. The BC chiefs are very concerned about what has happened. The National Chief says there's many questions that haven't been answered yet. When will these chiefs get the answers that they're looking for?
I think Canadians are looking to understand.
But you can continue watching the press conference on our APTN News Facebook page and stay up to date by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. And stick around. Don't forget to tune in to In Focus tomorrow live at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're talking housing on First Nations. Tim Fontaine's next with the Laughing Drum.